As a beginner reseller, one of the biggest questions that you ask yourself is what measurements should you put in the listing whenever you're creating it? I'm no beginner. I've been reselling for over 3 years now on eBay. Here's my process whenever it comes to listing clothing and putting in the measurements. First thing you want to do is always add the measurements of the actual clothing item inside the description of your listing. The measurements depend on the type of clothing. For this jacket, I did the pit-to-pit measurement and the length measurement. Sometimes I do add in the length of the sleeve, but not always. If you're a beginner, this is the part you're going to want to pay attention to. So first thing I do is fold it up. All of my items are stored in these clear poly bags up until the buyer opens it themselves. I want the condition to stay the same as it was that it was photographed in. If you're just starting out, this is where you're going to get your measurements for your listing. You're going to go ahead and do the length times width times height. I usually add an inch or two on each side, and since you're just starting, you're also going to weigh the item. I've gotten pretty good at it. I can pretty much guess how much an item weighs. It's going to be 1 to 5 pounds unless it's a larger coat or heavier pair of jeans. All of my clothing gets shipped in these white poly bags. They are 24 by 24 inches, but I do cut them in half if I have a smaller clothing item. You're going to repeat the process with all the other clothing items. You're going to take the measurements of the actual item and the measurements of the clothing item inside the poly bag. You're not at a point in time where you can purchase poly bags on your reselling journey. Just fold the item up and measure it that way. All of my smaller clothing items are stored in these 11 by 14 poly bags, so keep that in mind whenever you're doing the measurements as well. When it comes to measurements on the smaller clothing items, they're pretty much the same or similar. So with these pair of pants and all other jeans, my measurements are going to be around 12 by 10 by 5, or if they're a larger pair of jeans, 15 by 12 by 5. As you can tell, I'm over measuring a couple inches, and I do that with every single clothing item. We do the exact same thing with our hard goods. We know about what size box the item is going to go in, so whenever you're doing the measurements, you're going to get good at kind of recognizing what size box an item is going to fit into. Always over measure by a couple inches and overweigh by a pound or two depending on how large the item is. Don't overdo it because this can cost you a sale. Don't be tripping, it's just flipping.